My name is Annie Friedman. I'm a student success advocate at the University of Utah, and I'm joined today by Casey Hoekstra, who's the program manager for the Learning Center. And we're going to talk about transitioning to the fall semester. We know there's a lot of uncertainty, and we're hoping that we can kind of address them and get you set up for success no matter what the semester looks like. So Casey's going to share her screen and kind of drive. This is scheduled for an hour and will be recorded. So if you have to leave or you miss something, just know that that'll be available to you. So Casey, if you want to go to the next slide, I'll kind of cover what our game plan is for the day. I am going to start by just introducing you to the Student Success Advocates in case you haven't heard of us. And then I'll let Casey talk a little bit about the Learning Center and all of the awesome services they offer, just in case you're not familiar with that. And then we have some of the questions that you submitted as part of the registration. So thank you for sending those in. We'll touch on some of them. If we didn't get to your question or if we don't answer it, please just let us know, and know that for both Casey and myself, this is just kind of a broad general overview, and we're happy to follow up with you more specifically if there's anything you want to chat more about. Towards the end, you'll see here, we're going to talk a little bit about tutoring, note-taking, time management, and study strategies. So I'm definitely going to let Casey kind of cover all this since she's the expert here. But one thing I would ask is if there's something there you see that you would prefer we touch on first, just to make sure we get to it, just drop a note in the chat or, you know, either to everyone or just to me or Casey, and we'll make sure that we prioritize that. Hopefully we'll have enough time for everything, but just in case we don't, we really want to make sure we get to the topics that you're interested in. So Casey, if you don't mind going to the next slide, I'm going to have you click on that link for me. This is the SSA webpage. It's just ssa.utah.edu. So in case you're not familiar with the Student Success Advocates, there are 11 of us at the university, and we're here to make sure you're set up for success, whatever that looks like to you. So it could be a one-time thing where you have a certain goal and just need to get pointed in the right direction. It could be an ongoing relationship where you want to check in on things throughout the semester. Really, whatever your definition is of the success and any way that we can help you get there, that's our job. So part of the reason I wanted Casey to show the website is we have our tools for success. I think that's a really great initial way to kind of connect with us if you don't necessarily want to connect with an advocate right off the bat. I think this really highlights how we cover everything, and really just want to make sure you are successful and well-rounded. And we recognize, you know, you're not only a student, there's a lot that goes into being a student at the U, and anything we can do to help you be successful, again, that's our job. So what I love about this is there's a lot of different resources. So some of them are videos, some of them are podcasts, some of them are articles. So however you kind of want to engage with the material is really great. And as just a plug for time management, because I know that is a big thing, especially with hybrid and online learning, we have some tools for mapping out your week or mapping out the semester that I think are really useful. But yeah, that's pretty much it for the SSA page. You can reach out to an advocate directly. You can connect with us through our drop-in hours. So there's lots of different ways to engage with the SSAs. And yeah, I'll turn it over to Casey to talk a little bit about the Learning Center.
Awesome. Okay. So the Learning Center offers our four main services. I'm going to talk most about individual tutoring and the learning consultations because those apply to more people. But we do have individual tutoring. When there's not a pandemic, we do have a drop-in center where you can go visit our tutors. And then we have this program called Supplemental Instruction. So Supplemental Instruction is a peer educator program where we have a student who has taken a course and done really well in it. And they'll come back the next semester and they'll sit in the class, take notes, follow along like everyone else. And then outside of class, they'll hold a study session twice a week. And these study sessions are intended to help you gain a better understanding of the course material, as well as to develop transferable skills that you can use in your other courses. So not only succeed in the course that you're in, but hopefully in your other courses as well. There are studies that show students who engage with supplemental instruction at least a few times throughout the semester are likely to do half to a full letter grade better than their peers that don't attend SI sessions. So there is data that proves it is beneficial. We've also looked at studies of the long-term effects and those transferable skills, and students are likely to do better in their other courses following whatever course it is that they have supplemental instruction for. So definitely check it out on our website, which I'll show you just a little bit. It has all the information of which courses we're going to support. Well, not for fall yet. It will be on there as soon as everything's solidified, but all that information is available there. So we're located in Marriott Library 1738. We're hoping to be back on campus, but all of our services are available online as well. So nothing that we're offering is not offered online except for the drop-in center, which we'll get to how you can still access tutoring instead. And then this is just a photo of myself and our administrative assistant. We're an office of 2, and then we have about 30 student employees that are our tutors and SI leaders. So our individual tutoring is free. In the past, it has been at cost. So fall is the first semester that we get to offer it completely for free. We got a donation and we got some money from ASUU. So we're super excited to offer that for you all. To access free tutoring, I'll show you. If you go to our website, learningcenter.utah.edu, either here where it says schedule appointment right at the top, or down here, it says schedule a tutoring appointment here as well. You just have to agree that you're gonna keep people's information private and stuff. And then you log in with your CIS password and everything. You'll be able to choose which course it is that you're seeking assistance for. We have a ton of them. They're all over here. If you don't see the course that you're looking for, just shoot us an email or call us, and we'll look into see if any of our tutors are available to do it. So let's say you're in Calc 1, you need a tutor. You can choose telephone or video. When we do get to be back in person will also be an option on here. So right now we'll just select one of these, and then you can select a date from this week, or up at the top you can choose a different week. And then all of the slots that we have available, any tutors that we have that can help with that course during that time is available, and you'll just choose whatever works best for you. If you know who tutors are and you want to check out, you can say I want to work with Jenna or Erin or Maxwell. You can choose the specific tutor, and this will show you just their short little bio so you can learn more about them. You'll select the time, and then you'll have to fill out this real quick intake form just so that we know your preferred name and pronouns, and that we also are aware of exactly what content within that large subject that you're looking for assistance for. You'll get an email that has the link, or if it's a video or if it's a telephone, then your tutor will call you at the right time. So super slick. It's way better than what it used to be. I promise. It's really great. And then the other service that we offer is learning consultations. So I meet with students one-on-one. And we can talk about any academic success skill that you would like to learn more about, something that you want more resources on, something you want to improve, anything that you think would make you a better student, we can meet and talk about. Since we're a small group, this is kind of like a little group learning consultation today. We're going to kind of customize it to whatever you want. But no, if we don't cover what you want to cover, feel free to send me an email or reach out on our website. You can also schedule a learning consultation on the same site as what we have for our tutoring appointments. So just reach out, let me know, we can get something scheduled, and then we can talk about whatever it is that you want to talk about. Okay, so these are some of the questions that were posted or in the intake form, whatever the submission that you had. So we just want to kind of address some of these questions before we get started so that we can make it more customized to what you're looking for. So the first one is, how do we transition to hybrid learning successfully? And one thing that Annie and I have talked about a lot in planning this session is that online learning strategies and in-person strategies are very similar. A lot of the stuff that we talk about, you know, being able to manage your time, you have to manage your time if you're in class, but you also have to successfully manage your time if you're online. So making sure you're setting up blocks and saying, this is when I'm going to do this specific course. This is when I'm going to study, and this is what that studying is going to look like. You know, but by having a consistent schedule, that can really help with online and hybrid learning. You need to know, you know, maybe this week I'm actually in person and this week I'm online. I need to know that ahead of time so I don't go all the way to campus and it turns out my classes are online. So I think time management, no matter what aspect of your life it is, if it's online learning, if it's, you know, your personal life or work life, time management is going to be really helpful.
And I would just add to that, I think with the hybrid, hopefully, you know, for fall, you already kind of know what format your classes will be in. But if it is a hybrid, the week you're in person, really think about what you need in person. If it is kind of that face-to-face time or study groups, try to schedule, I think, around that and capitalize on, hey, this is my week in person, and use that. And I think with online learning, the first thing to remember, you know, is spring, I think, was a little bit challenging just because it happened so suddenly, right? And at least for fall right now, we know the plan. We kind of know what's coming. And so hopefully that in and of itself is a little bit better. But I think the other thing is that this is new territory for everyone. So be patient with yourself, be patient with staff and faculty and fellow students, because we're all just kind of navigating these muddy waters together. But I also think the other thing with online learning is really thinking about what the challenge is. And I think Casey brings up a valid point with the time management, that it is, I think, for a lot of folks, the freedom to access the class when you want, or not having to be somewhere at a certain time maybe. And so trying to think about what those issues are and potential ways that you could solve them. So if you, for example, need to go somewhere, maybe go to a coffee shop or the library and do the lecture then. And that way you kind of have that consistency and normalcy that Casey's talking about. And then I think, again, using the resources. So this is great, I think, to be here and kind of thinking about these things for the fall semester, and then using, you know, the SSAs. One thing I didn't really mention is we tend to be more generalists. And I think this presentation is a great example, right? So if a student came to me and said, hey, I need some help with time management, I can certainly start the conversation and point them in the direction of some resources and, you know, dabble in it. But I would likely bring in the Learning Center and say, hey, let's also loop in Casey just because she's an expert. So I think just being open to resources and trying different things to see what works is a great way to transition to the hybrid learning as well. Casey, you want to take the second question too? Start with that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So other than taking notes and utilizing tutors, what tips would you suggest for a transfer student after 4 years? Again, obviously, I am a huge proponent of time management. I manage my time to a T all the time. My partner thinks it's really annoying. But I would also say really taking an inventory of how you learn best and knowing how you study best. Because especially if you're coming back after some time away, it's likely that you might be working full-time or part-time or something. So really being able to say, you know, like, I know that I need to do this during this time. I know that I don't have time over the weekend, so I need to prioritize this, you know, during the week. Or, you know, I know that this particular week in this semester looks really busy. And then saying, how can I study most efficiently during those times? I know that I study best by listening to someone talk about the topic, right? So I should make sure that I'm like recording the lectures if I have the professor's permission. I should be looking at videos online. Or saying, I learn best from rewriting my notes. So I need to make study sheets for myself. I need to write a summary of all my notes and see where I don't know what's going on. I also think setting goals is really important. So if you say, I'm going to study for 2 hours, what does that look like? My goal for these 2 hours is to find sources for my paper, write an outline. And then for my other course, I want to make sure that I make flashcards and, you know, understand these 4 terms before I leave. I think goals are good in every aspect of life as well, but especially when we're studying, it can help give us direction and focus for that time that we're sitting down and doing something. And then when we leave, if we finish those goals, we have a sense of accomplishment and hopefully motivation moving forward of saying, I feel good about what I've done. And now I can, you know, I'm motivated to do these other things and be productive more.
Awesome. I agree with that. And I think this ties into the third question. So I'll kind of address the third question and hopefully answer both of them as well. So the third question is, what tools or systems that you all use to do school successfully? And so I think this could be a great way to engage. If any of you want to share ideas you have, please feel free to jump in either in the chat or, you know, just chime in here. But I think with having a gap in education, I work a lot with students who have taken breaks or returning students. And I really think just easing into it and knowing that probably you're not the same student you were 4 years ago. And that's okay, you know, and just trying what works and recognizing it might change. So as that relates to the third question, I know for myself, when I was in school, I'm not good in the evenings. Like, I never pulled an all-nighter in college, and that's because 9, 10 o'clock, I am ready for bed. I am not ready to write a paper, you know, or read through notes, whatever it might be. And so I think recognizing that about myself, and instead of, you know, trying to stay up all night, that again comes to time management, right? I'd have to factor that in. But, you know, I would just call it a night and wake up early to get it done the next day. And I think that helped me be successful by not trying to force something when I knew I would not be doing my best work in the evening. Another thing I really like to harp on with students that I think helped me in school was checking my school email and Canvas at least once a day. I had my school email forward to my personal email. And I know it's a lot of emails, but I felt like even though it was kind of digging through what's actually important, it could be, you know, oh, this assignment's extended. So I felt like I was always up to date and knew what was going on and checking in with school stuff just by having the email and Canvas check-in. So if that's not something you're doing, I'd recommend maybe giving that a try. And I think that helped me be successful. Casey, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
Mm-hmm. Well, this isn't technically a tool or a system, but I think utilizing your professors as much as you can. They're there for you to learn. So, you know, like some of them are scary, some of them might not be the most welcoming or whatever, but at least giving it a shot and reaching out and saying, you know, I'm really struggling with this topic. I don't understand what this specific thing is or how it relates to everything else, or, you know, like this assignment's really difficult for me. But I always encourage students to reach out to professors more towards the beginning half of the semester, because it's easier to say like, hey, I am struggling and I want to do well, rather than, hey, it's the end of the semester and I didn't tell you that I was struggling and I didn't do well, and now I need you to help me fix it. They're going to be more willing to help you earlier in the semester. And then also it's creating a network of other people who are engaged with that material. You know, you might be able to use them for a reference and say, look, I was a really good student, I tried. You can also use them moving forward if you're in a class that's a subsequent class and you don't understand what's going on in that one. You can be like, hey, can you help me relearn some of this fundamental information so I know what's going on? But I would say always reach out to a professor and use them as much as you can, without being, you know, too needy, hopefully. But making sure that you're getting as much out of your college experience as you can, because you're paying a lot to be here. It takes a lot of time and effort. Make sure that you're using them. As far as like study routines, one thing that I think is important is to be as efficient as possible with your time. So if you have an hour break between two classes, make sure you're doing something productive during that time. My very first year of college, I had a 2-hour break between two classes, and I walked 30 minutes back to my residence hall, and I took a nap and then walked 30 minutes back to class. It was the biggest waste of my time. So making sure that you're choosing what's best. You know, it's better for me to take a nap after all my classes are done, so I don't have to spend that hour walking. And I know, you know, during that 2 hours, I can sit in the library or sit in the union and I can spend some time working on classes. If you have online classes and you have a break between them, maybe you are right next to your bed and it's easy to take a nap, but also try to use that time to be efficient during the day, so that hopefully by the end of the day, you can be done with everything. Our willpower is not an infinite resource that we have. We do run out more towards the end of the day. Like Annie was saying, I don't like studying at night either. So make sure that you're doing as much as you can on the front end of the day, so that hopefully by the end you can do something relaxing, and you know, find joy in something through the day and not have to burn out on doing everything that you don't want to do. Does anyone have any other questions, whether it was that you posed a question and it didn't get answered, or something from this rose a different question for you? Feeling good?
One question that I didn't put on the slide here, Casey, it's more related to online and just the struggle, I think, with time management and staying motivated. And I feel like we've talked about time management a fair bit, but do you have any ideas for kind of staying motivated with online classes?
Yeah, for sure. I think rewarding yourself for whatever it is that you're doing is a really easy way to combat procrastination and to feel some sort of motivation. I also think, again, I love managing my time way too much probably, but I think it's important to put in like events saying, you know, like I'm going to study from this time to this time, and then I'm going to take a walk. I'm going to take a bath. I'm going to, you know, go exercise because that's what makes me feel better. I'm going to watch TV or something. But I think it's okay to put stuff like that in your calendar because it's easy to burn out if you look at your calendar and all you see are tasks that need to be done and stuff that you don't want to do. But if you can look and say, you know, during this 1 hour during the day, I get to do whatever the heck I want. I get to go somewhere. I get to have some coffee. I get to take a nap, you know, whatever that looks like for you. I think it helps with motivation of saying, like, if I get these things done on time, I get to do this reward. You know, and then looking at your calendar and saying, look at these fun things I have coming up that I get to do. So it hopefully helps eliminate some of that procrastination and burnout, which we can talk more about procrastination too in a bit because I have some information on that. It's the beast that no one can defeat. We think that we can, and we get some progress, but I think it always comes back.
Totally. I feel like one thing I've been enjoying since working from home is I'll usually have like a 50-minute chunk, and that's my time to get things. And then I'm allowed to go to the kitchen or, you know, get a snack, whatever it might be. And I think just building in even that 10-minute break every hour has kind of helped me like just reframe and refocus and stay motivated.
For sure.
So, cool. Okay. Well, do you want to jump into tutoring and all that good stuff? It doesn't look like anyone wanted us to change our order per se, so we can kind of stick with it as is.
Perfect. Sounds good.
Cool.
Okay. I am young and I think I'm hip, so I have some gifts in my presentation. Hopefully they're enjoyable. But I like to talk about the point of tutoring and like why we even talk about this stuff. I really like to introduce some theory. So here we have Bloom's taxonomy. This is a theory about thinking. So our levels of understanding, how well we know information, how much we can interact with it, how deep our relationship with that information is. So if you look at the pyramid, the bottom, we have our most basic level of understanding, which is just knowledge. Being able to restate something word for word, you know, you memorized it, but you don't really know what it means. I can just say exactly what I was told before. Comprehension is restating it in your own words, being able to summarize. So we have a step further. Application, a lot of these are pretty self-explanatory. Application is being able to apply that information to new problems. So, you know, if you have an equation or you have 4 equations and you look at a problem, you can decide which equation is the right to apply to that specific problem. Analysis, being able to see how things are arranged, if they're cause and effect, you know, if they're not related, you know, logic, semantics, all that stuff. Evaluation, second to last one, being able to make your own decisions based on the information that you've learned and then supporting your views. So I agree with this information because X, Y, Z, I disagree. This is good information, this is bad information, and this is why. And then the last one way at the top, we have create. So being able to understand information so well that you can create your own unique product. So whether that's like an invention that you made or you've done research and now you have a new theory on some information, anything like that. So we're going to do a real quick activity. It takes 2 seconds of your time. But I just want to point out that the pyramid is going to be flipped. So purple, knowledge, that we see at the bottom is going to be on the top, and then create, orange, is going to be on the bottom. So think back to high school, way back in the day, or your early days of college. At what level of Bloom's did you have to operate in order to make A's or B's in high school? So remember, knowledge is our most basic and create is the most complex. So if you want to type it in the chat, or if you just want to unmute yourself real quick, what level did you operate at in order to make A's or B's in high school? Comprehension. Awesome. So we have pretty basic. What else?
Comprehension.
Comprehension. Okay. Awesome. Application. Right. So if we look here, and this study, I should have said this at the beginning, this study looked at a bunch of high school assignments and tests and looked at each question and kind of broke it down as to what each question was asking the students to do. So you can see we're right there in the first 3, knowledge, comprehension, application. We're at those pretty low levels of understanding, right? So if we move on, at what levels of Bloom's do you think you'll need to operate to get A's or B's in college or in your upper level courses? Evaluation. Evaluation, awesome.
Evaluation.
Evaluation, okay. Pretty consistent, I like it. All right, so same study looks at the same type of questions. And they did find most of the questions that they're asking are going to be application, analysis, evaluation, and then some create, depending on if you're in your like level 4 and 5,000 classes or if you're in level 1 and 2,000 courses. But I think what's really important to recognize when we talk about this is that a lot of people say college is hard and it's harder than high school, or your upper level courses are going to be harder, but they don't really explain why. They just say it's going to be harder. But I think it's important to know, like, it's harder because we're having to have more of a relationship with that information. We need to understand it more in depth. And maybe what we did to study, if we were able to memorize and just regurgitate things back, maybe that worked in our lower level courses, or maybe that worked in some of our courses that were higher level because they weren't asking too much of us. But a lot of our courses are going to be asking those harder questions. We need to be able to, take that information and apply it to a new situation. We need to analyze it. How are these related to each other? Is this cause and effect? And then, for really high upper level courses, you're going to have to do research and create your own product at the end. So I think it's important that we need to manage our time because we have to spend more time studying, but we also need to study in a different way because what we did before might not be the best way for us to study moving forward. So point of tutoring, based on those things that we talked about. First one is personalized teaching. So working with a tutor gives you some information in a way that works best for you. Like I said before, it's good to find the best way to learn and to study. So maybe lectures don't do anything for you and you sit there and you're paying attention, but like you're not retaining the information. Maybe it's best to look through videos or to find pictures. A tutor is going to be someone who's able to help you find those resources. Tutoring can also give you motivation and dedication. 86% of students reported that they experienced some sort of school-related stress. I know I'm not in school anymore, but I still feel that stress that you all feel at times too. So tutoring can help when you meet with a tutor and you talk about, what's going on. I don't feel confident in this information. This content doesn't make sense to me. They're able to help you understand that content, and then you're going to feel more confident moving forward. And the last one is preparation for life after college. One thing that we talk about all the time in the Learning Center is transferable skills. Things that you're learning now are going to be able to be applied to so many different situations. So working with a tutor helps you build critical thinking, right? We're able to move through those levels of Bloom's taxonomy and understand the information more. We're able to communicate what it is that we need, what we understand, what we don't understand. And then we have creativity, problem solving, adaptability, resiliency, so many other important things. So make sure you're really actively engaging in your learning because the stuff that you're doing now is going to be so beneficial moving forward. All right, we're going to talk about notes. I think it's important to recognize that we still have to take notes, whether our classes are in person or online. It can be harder to take them when we're learning online because if our whole screen is the video, maybe we have to take them on paper. If we want to type them, whatever. But also recognizing whatever it is that works best for you, there is no scientifically proven way that is the best way to take notes. So these are all just going to be suggestions and kind of talking through how we can be better at taking notes. And some of them are totally cliche and obvious, but I think that they should still be stated. So the first one is making sure that we're actively listening. I think active listening requires a lot of energy. We need to make sure we're putting away all of our distractions. We're really paying attention. We're not kind of drifting off in our minds. So some things that we can pay attention to help us actively listen. Recognizing the main ideas by signal words that your professors might be saying. So if they start off by saying, there are 3 reasons why, XYZ, make sure that we are writing down 3 reasons. If we don't have 3 reasons at the end of our notes, we need to make sure we go back and talk to the professor, look it up online, look up in our note or in our textbooks or whatever. But if they say there's 3 reasons, we need to have 3 reasons. Also, if they're saying like the significance of this is, or this is important because whatever, make sure that we have that information in our notes. And then many professors are going to let students know what parts of the information that they're talking about is going to be on the test. So this will be on the test. You need to know this. This is really important. Make sure you understand this, whatever. But really be actively listening. And if you hear those things, make sure, for sure, that we have that information in our notes. So another way, if you find that your notes aren't really the best, you're going through and you're really struggling to understand what's going on, or you don't really take many notes or whatever, I think it's good to try out different note-taking methods. So each person, again, does their own notes. There's no correct way to do it. There's probably bad ways to do it if they don't work for you, but there's no like scientifically proven bad way to do it. So make sure that we think, get rid of that image of what we think notes should look like, because they can look different for each person. And don't be afraid to go outside the box. So if you learn in different ways, you can draw pictures. If you really gain information from having graphs, put some graphs in there. If you can make a diagram of the information or make your own visual representation of what's going on, definitely try that out. And then using like arrows and lines. So I know a lot of times when I'm taking notes, I get frustrated when I'm writing and I don't leave enough space, and then I have to like write arrows and draw so that I know what's going on. But don't be afraid to just say, this connects to this information, or, like draw an arrow and say, don't forget that this is important. Draw a really big star or circle. Like, I know that I need to know this information. I really love color coding my notes. I'm a visual learner and I love colors. So what I would do in my undergrad career, each day, so if I had class Monday, Wednesday, Friday, I would use a different colored pen. I would use like green, blue, and purple, so that I would know in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, I learned that like a few days ago. I know I need to look back so it's a different color of ink. And then I would use different colored highlighters based on different information. So if it was a history class, if I had, like people, I would highlight in yellow. Places I would highlight in orange, and then events or times I would highlight in like yellow or something like that, if I haven't already said that. But just different colors for different things that you're looking for. And then when you're studying, that can help you look through and say, I'm looking for a person, I need to look for yellow. Here it is. So whatever works best for you for color coding. So this is a really super structured form of note-taking. It's called the Cornell Method of note-taking. But I feel like it takes a lot of paper, but it's also really beneficial. So bear with me on this one. But you're gonna have 6 inches of your paper, that is where your notes are at. And then you're gonna have your margin on the left, that is gonna be a place where you can fill in notes after class. So what they have for examples here, they have cues. So you can say, this is the heading of this specific section. This is our main idea. This is a vocab word that I need to know. Or you could also use it as a time to say, this is a question that might show up on the test based on the information that's available in my notes right here. Or this is a place where I have holes, or I have a question for my professor. And then at the bottom, you're going to do a summary. So after class is done, you just sit down and you say, okay, what was this information about? What did I learn? What are our main ideas? What do I think is going to be important, or what's on the test? We'll talk about it in a little bit, but writing summary sheets is super helpful because it gives us that opportunity to critically think about the information that we learned, so we can engage with it in a little deeper way than what we were if we were just rereading our notes. All right, and then the last type of, let's say the second to last type of notes is visual. So if you love drawing pictures, if you're a doodler, there's a lot of studies that show students who doodle while they're taking notes are able to retain information at the same rate as people who had written down stuff. So if that's your jam, it's totally fine, go ahead and do it. If you're spending more time focusing on how good the photo looks instead of making sure that you're paying attention, then that's obviously a time where we need to reevaluate our note-taking skills. But just know, visual notes are totally supported. And the last one is typing your notes. I like to talk about this, even though it's pretty generic. I like to talk about it because I think it's important for us to remember how we can actively listen while we're typing our notes. It's really easy to mindlessly type your notes and then happen to flip over to Facebook or Instagram or Twitter or something, right? And then we're not really paying attention anymore because we have the whole world at our fingertips. So if we are typing our notes, make sure that we are fully devoting ourselves to the notes that we're taking and that we're listening to the professor and paying attention. And this is also a really great time if you're typing them. You can highlight stuff as you're going. You can put stuff in bold and underline and italics and whatever, right? And then if you have a certain way that you remember stuff, it's super quick and efficient to get that done while you're typing them. But be aware, I helped with the history class in undergrad, and there was one semester every single day, someone who sat in front of me was shopping online every single day. And then they would come to the study sessions and be like, I don't know what's going on in class. And I'm like, I wonder why. So make sure we're paying attention while we're typing our notes. So some different ways, if we're taking our notes, if the speaker goes too fast, I know I speak like 1,000 words a minute. So I recognize a lot of people might be in that boat right now. But if the speaker goes too fast, don't panic and don't give up. I think it's really easy for us to say, I can't get all of this typed, so I'm just not going to pay attention anymore. But then what was the point of even being in that class, right? Write down any general ideas or subjects that you can think of that you can hear while they're rambling on, right? So if the topic of the day is Queen Elizabeth, let's write down some basic things that we hear. If it's the water cycle, let's write down some basic, different sections of the water cycle. So we at least have some fundamental understanding of a few things. And then put a question mark in your notes. Go back later. This is a really great time if you have already, created some sort of relationship with your professor. Great time to utilize them and say, hey, I didn't understand a word you said. You were going so fast. Can we talk about this specific topic? Use your textbooks, use your peers, really ask some people, what did you get out of this? Did you hear what was going on? If they didn't, find some other resources as well, so you make sure that you have the information. Oh, look, utilize professor, like I've talked about all day. If you have blank spaces in your notes, make sure that you ask them. What did I miss? Can you repeat it? Is this important? Don't be afraid to ask in class. Raise your hand. And if you kind of get the vibe that they're like, whoa, this was a lot, maybe don't ask so many questions, then you can back off a little bit and maybe ask them after class instead. And then summarize your notes. So like I kind of briefly mentioned before, there are a lot of studies that show us that rewriting your notes word for word doesn't actually help us gain any information. So it doesn't help us like make connections of the information. Instead, we're just looking at words or letters because we're just trying to retype them. So instead of just retyping them word for word, try making a summary sheet. So write down the important details, look for connections, say, this is a question I think might be on the test. I'm going to put that on there. Or here's something that I'm still confused about. So here are my resources and how I'm going to figure out the answer to this. So if you have about like 10 pages of notes, try to condense it down to about 2 pages and just say, here are the most important parts. Here are vocab words I need to know. Here's what's going on. And that can help you create your own study guide so that you can study for the test and make sure that you fully understand that information. So general tips for note taking: be prepared. Make sure you have all of your stuff ready. If your computer's dead, if you don't have a paper, or if you don't have a pen, it's going to be hard to take notes. Make sure that we are actively listening. So focus, pay attention. If we notice that we're drifting off, kind of be like, why am I drifting off? Is it because I'm bored? Is it because I'm tired? How can I address this situation so that I can actively listen again? Pay attention to the content. So, actually listen to what they're saying. Learn what you need to write down. The more that you work with a professor, probably the easier it is for you to identify where in the notes it's going to be important for you to pay attention. And then review your notes. So we have this thing called the curve of forgetting. So if you don't review information that you've learned within 24 hours, you're likely to forget about 75% of it. So if we're constantly reviewing that information, like once a day for 10 minutes or every other day for 10 minutes or something like that, we're more likely to retain that information. So we don't have to reteach ourselves all of that content right before the test. So make sure we're really interacting with our notes, treat them more as like a living document rather than just a piece of paper that you had and you push to the side until it's test time. Awesome, okay. So we're going to talk about time management, just some really brief stuff since we did talk about it pretty hefty in the beginning. As college students, it's really important to use your syllabus. It's what guides your entire semester. We live by semesters, we live by courses. So at the beginning of the semester, I would like to challenge you all to take just an hour or two, sit down with all of the syllabi from all of your classes, and go through and have like a planner, a calendar, online calendar, whatever you use, and write down all the important dates. So write down your professor's office hours, make sure you know when and where you can contact them. Write down due dates, canceled classes, make sure you don't show up on days when it's either online or not happening at all. And then make sure you know when your final is, especially with us having the last portion of courses online after Thanksgiving break, things are gonna be kind of messy. So make sure you know, my professor's not waiting until finals. We're doing it before Thanksgiving. I know I need to study way before that instead of waiting until Thanksgiving break and trying to cram it all in. Also know the best way to contact your professor. This might not seem like a time management skill, but if your professor says, like, I'm never going to be in my office, I don't want to interact with people in person this semester, I'm going to do it all online, and you show up to their office, it's going to be a waste of your time. So make sure we know how we can most effectively and efficiently get our questions answered by our professors. And then the last one is take note of how your class is weighted. So some of your assignments are going to be worth more, some will be worth less. You know, sometimes they say like everything is worth 100 points and you just know everything's worth 100 points, but other times it's not. So if you have a test that's worth 2% of your grade and a paper that's worth 10% of your grade, you're obviously going to want to spend more time on that paper to make sure that you're doing really well, since it's weighted more for that class. I want to acknowledge, I'm not saying like don't focus on certain assignments because they're just worth smaller, a smaller portion of your grade. Make sure we're still giving all of our assignments the time and effort that they need, but knowing how to prioritize when things are weighted differently. All right, and then procrastination. Like I said, procrastination is something that I think we all suffer from and that we can't really ever get over. I think we can do our best, but we'll always have some procrastination in our life. There's this really cool video. I can share the link afterwards as well. It's called The Real Reason Why We Procrastinate by Mel Robbins. And she talks about how procrastination is a form of stress relief. If there's something that we don't want to do, we're going to find ways not to do it, right? If it's something that's huge and stressing us out, like this giant paper that's due, or all of our finals during the same week, we're going to find something else that doesn't scare us so much. So I think recognizing that it's a natural instinct for us to procrastinate, and it's not because we're bad students, and it's not because we're lazy. It's just the way that our minds are wired. So some ways to combat that procrastination. The first one is studying in 30 to 45-minute breaks. So they show that your brain really can only listen to certain information for about 30 to 45 minutes at a time. So if you're bored right now, it's not because I'm boring, it's because your brains are getting tired. But to combat that, if you say you're going to study for 2 hours, maybe study for 40 minutes and take a 10-minute break, and then study for 40 minutes and take a 30-minute break, or whatever the math is for that. And then you can go on to something else after. But make sure when we're taking these breaks, we're really doing something that brings us stress relief, brings us joy, removes us from that environment. So if we are, studying on our computer, step away from the computer for that time. Do something different. So we're actually, we're not just letting our brains be in the same environment, but we're going somewhere else and being refreshed. Like I mentioned before, rewards can be really helpful for motivation and helping us to stay on task. So reward yourself once you've completed something, but be aware of the time that you spend doing that reward. I think sometimes it's easy to say, oh, cool, after I finish studying for 2 hours, I'm going to watch an episode of The Office. And then that one episode of The Office turns into like a season of The Office. And then we spent more time on our reward than we have on studying. So really be aware of the amount of time that we're spending doing that. Another way to combat procrastination, it sounds really silly, just start doing what it is that you have to do. I'm just going to get started for like 10 minutes. I'm going to work on it. I'm going to sit down and do one thing, right? Studies show that people who just sit down and start and say they're going to give themselves a short period of time, 80% of them are likely to continue whatever task it is that they're doing. So if you say, I have this giant paper and I don't want to do it, I'm just going to find one resource. And then you realize, hey, that wasn't so bad. It was easy to find one resource. I can find another resource. Oh, these resources are actually pretty interesting. I'm going to start writing my annotated bibliography. Or, I'm going to start taking notes so that I can write my outline or whatever. And then also, it's really important to find the perfect study area to be the most productive. When we're on campus, it's great. We have so many amazing places that we can go. And then we're told that we have to work from home or we have to do school from home. And it's like, cool, I get my bedroom and that's about it, right? So really finding a place that you're going to be productive. My first few days of working from home, I worked on the couch, and that was ridiculous because I definitely fell asleep, right? So I know I cannot sit on my couch and do productive work. I know that I have to be somewhere else. I know I need to be sitting upright. I need the computer on a desk in front of me, or I'm not going to be productive. It's also important to know who is the most productive. If you're setting up a study group, maybe you have a study group and there's some people in there that are super distracting. That might not be the best place for you to study. I don't study well in groups. It's more of just like a complaint session about the class. So I realized really quickly, like if I go to those, I know I'm not going to get stuff done. So I need to find the right people that I can study with so that I'm staying on topic. Okay, and then real quick, we'll just run through some different study strategies. Looks like we have 14 minutes. So this is the curve of forgetting that I had mentioned earlier. Here's a nice graph of it. But again, I think it's cheesy, but important to recognize that studying starts from the moment that we learn information. if we're not reviewing that information all the way through the unit, we're going to forget most of it and have to reteach ourselves information, which is going to be a waste of time later, right? It's going to take a lot more time on the end, except unless we're doing something all the way through the unit or semester. So here you can see if we learn this information 1 hour, right, about the time that we're sitting in class, if we're not reviewing it the next day, we lost about 75% of that information. And if we don't review it within a week, we lost about 90% of it, 80, 90% of it. And if we don't review it for a whole month, it's pretty much gone, right? So if we have a unit that takes about a month and we don't review that information, everything from the beginning is gone. So we're encouraging you to study for about 10 minutes every single day. Just look over your notes, write a summary sheet, highlight, in different colors, based on if they're people, places, things, or, whatever course it is that you're working with. Make a summary sheet, make a study guide for yourself, make some flashcards, whatever. Just spend a few minutes every day looking over that information. And then here, if we studied a little bit every day, at the end of the month when the test is coming, we really just need to review the information. We're not having to reteach it or to memorize it or anything. We understand it, and hopefully we have that deeper level of understanding so that we really succeed and have like a great understanding, like fundamental understanding of the information, so we can apply it to different situations. So some different studying techniques that are pretty universal. The first one is teaching a friend. So they say if you can explain information to someone else, it means that you have a good understanding of that content. If we're not able to teach it to someone else, it shows that, maybe I do have some holes in my information and I need to really focus on studying this particular section. If you have a friend or family member or roommate or whatever that is willing to listen to you teach, that's awesome. If you don't, or if you feel uncomfortable doing that, you can at least just say it out loud to the mirror, say it out loud to yourself, do whatever. As long as you're taking time and going through that information, hopefully you're going to understand it better. Next one is quiz yourself. So asking yourself questions, being prepared for the test. If you have a study guide from the professor, great, fill it out. If you don't, make your own study guide. Turn it into a test. Make sure you're using your notes as little as possible so that we're really getting a good understanding of what's going on. And last one is using concept cards and memory games. So flashcards are a good memory game, and then concept cards take flashcards just a step further. It's your term on one side, definition on the other, and then a reason why that information is important. So this topic is connected to this other topic, or this event caused this other event, or this is a part of a chemical reaction, or something like that. What's good with memory games is that it really helps us to know that we know the information, because if we can't recite the information without looking at our notes, then we don't really know it, right? So make sure that we're studying in a way that we're holding ourselves accountable and saying, I am studying this information. I'm going to say the definition out loud, right? I'm going to write it down or something. I'm guilty of that a lot in undergrad. I would just flip through my flashcards and say like, yeah, I know that, moving on. I know that, moving on. And then I got to the test and was like, nope, I didn't know any of that stuff. So I had to force myself to say them out loud to show and prove to myself that I knew that information. Okay, and then just some tips for test preparation. A lot of these are super cliche, but they're totally true. The first one is get a good night's sleep. So there are studies that show us that if we are sleep deprived, we are operating the same as if we were inebriated. And I don't think you would show up to a test drunk, so I hope you wouldn't show up to a test super duper tired. So make sure we're getting sleep. That's time for our brain to refresh and process information, and we need that. So don't be staying up all night trying to study or doing something else. Make sure we're getting some sleep the night before. Know when and where your test is so that you can get there early, you can relax. You don't want to show up right before your test starts or 10 minutes after your test started because you went to the wrong room. And then take some time and breathe. Breathing techniques, again, kind of cliche, but totally work. Our bodies need oxygen, and if we're stressed out or nervous, we tend to not breathe as much. So make sure we're taking some big deep breaths. If you have different breathing techniques that work for you, then that's awesome. Start studying early and set goals. Like I said before, our studying starts from the second we learn information. And if we're setting goals, that's going to help us stay motivated and that we're studying each day and we have some purpose and we have direction when we're studying. If it's a class that you've had a test in before, review old tests. If your professor has old copies of different versions of the test, go ahead and ask them for those. It doesn't hurt to check. Look at or create a study guide. Like I said, if your professor offers one, usually they're a pretty good guide of what information is going to be on the test. Sometimes I think that they're kind of tricky and they throw you off, but use them as much as you can. And then don't cram unless you absolutely have to. So since our brains can only focus for about 30 to 45 minutes at a time, if we are cramming all that information and we are studying for 6 hours right before the test, we're going to forget pretty much everything that we learned. You might do well on that specific test because you crammed and you had it all in your head, but that information is not going to be retained. And then when we get to like your final, if it's cumulative, none of that information is going to be there and you're going to have to reteach yourself everything. So don't cram unless you have to. And then just some questions to ask when preparing for your test. It can be helpful if we know what we expect the test to look like. That can kind of guide our studying. So what format is it? Is it going to be multiple choice? Is it essay, short answer? You know, that's going to kind of dictate how well we need to understand that information. How many questions? If it's a giant test, you know that you might just have, you know, some small questions about a lot of stuff. If it's a really small test, it might be super in-depth. Is it cumulative or a unit test? You know, need to know if you need to know everything or just some specific things. What do the past tests look like? And then what resources do I have to study with? It's important to use as many resources as possible. So your past notes, study guides, lecture notes, any resources that you've created, using your peers and your professors and anything else that you can find to help you study. All right, are there any questions?
That was awesome. Thank you, Casey.
Yes.
I also want to plug the Tools for Success again, because there are the Cornell Method. There is a format there to do that if you want to try it. There is also, like I mentioned before, in terms of time management, there are spreadsheets for either the weekly calendar or the semester at a glance, which I think is really helpful with, you know, taking that hour before the semester starts to go through all the syllabi and be like, okay, here are the key dates I need to know. And just having that view, I feel like it can seem like it's going to be overwhelming, but it really helps you see like, okay, I got this, you know, this is everything, and just tackle it kind of as it comes along, but also know what's in the future. Awesome. Well, again, this is recorded, so if you need to refer back to anything, that is also on the SSA webpage. It's our virtual events. We've had some others throughout the summer that have been awesome as well, collaborating with other campus partners. So feel free to check those out. If you ever want the one-on-one learning consultation or connect with a tutor, definitely check out the Learning Center. They are awesome. That's probably the one resource I tell every student, like, I wish I had this as an undergrad, because it's just such a great resource. And of course, Student Success Advocates, we're always here to help and support you any way we can throughout your time at the university. So thank you again, Casey, for being so awesome and sharing your time with us and all your knowledge. And yeah, we'll see everyone in the fall semester.